Welcome to this Wise Owl tutorial on using agent mode in ChatGPT, something which actually has the potential to change your working life, I think. So here's what you'll learn during the tutorial. We'll begin by looking at what agent mode is. Please don't miss this part because I think it's really useful as background. I'll look at the good bits and the bad bits, and being a natural pessimist, probably spend more time on the latter than the former. Then we'll look at a case study planning a journey, as it happens, from Manchester to Amsterdam, which our family needs to do soon. We'll look at reviewing how to review the steps and the sources that ChatGPT uses when it's answering a question. And then we'll look at how you can take control of a session. Sometimes you have to when ChatGPT wants you to type in a password, for example. We'll look at connecting to sources like Gmail or Google Calendar. And finally, we'll do another case study, another example on using connected sources, this time to send out an email. But that's enough of looking at me. I'll vanish now, and let's get started. So what is agent mode? If you go to ChatGPT and you have a Plus account or a paid account, you can click on the plus next to where it says Ask Anything and invoke agent mode. You can see it says 35 left and it's going to renew in the middle of October. So it's a feature which is fairly heavily throttled by ChatGPT, and we'll discuss why in a bit. So if I click on that, you can see it says the word agent there, and I'm ready to describe a task that I want to achieve. So what actually happens behind the scenes? You might be working away at your laptop and might get stressed trying to solve a problem. This is taking ages, you think. I'm going to ask my agent mode assistant. So you say, can you find the cheapest way to get from Manchester to Amsterdam, please, Robbie? Which is the example we're going to be doing later in this tutorial. All robots should be called Robbie, by the way. Sure, I'll just turn my computer on and start looking, says Robbie in a robotic-type voice. Sadly, I'm not an actor, so you'll have to take that one for granted. I'm having a look for the best websites to go to. So Robbie will continually keep you updated on what he's doing. It's up to you whether you look at this. It's best to just let him get on with his work in the background. Okay, I'm going to look at travelmath.com to find out the distance involved. This is actually the first thing he's going to look at when we look at our example later. Wow, that's a long way. Are you sure you wouldn't rather go to Stoke instead? So that's the sort of thing that agent mode won't do. It will rigorously stick to what you've asked it to do, but I thought I'd had it in just for fun. And then after a long series of web searches and other requests to websites, Robbie might say, hey Andy, I just need you to type in your password on my laptop so I can buy the tickets. And this is called taking control. So you'd lean over, you'd type in your password on his virtual machine, as it's called, and then he'd say, all done. You're booked on the 4:30 plane via Bangkok, and it only cost you £2,500. Now that's a flippant example. I'm sure Robbie wouldn't book such a stupid flight, but it does illustrate the point that you're really handing control to somebody else, and it comes down to a question of trust, I would say. Now, of course, you don't need to let Robbie have the authority to book the flight. You could just ask him to come up with the information, which I think is what most sane people would do at this stage. So I want to look now at the pros and cons of agent mode. The advantages are pretty obvious. Agent mode is like having a free research assistant available 24 hours a day to answer your questions. And as such, I think will probably change the world. I dread to think how many jobs this is going to threaten, but I guess that's beyond the scope of this tutorial. The disadvantages, well, you need a paid copy of ChatGPT at the moment anyway, and you only get so many searches per month. Let's have a look at what those actually mean from the ChatGPT or OpenAI website. So you can see here that agent mode is currently only available on Pro, Plus, Business, Enterprise, and Edu plans. The list of supported countries and territories is pretty comprehensive, by the way. And in terms of usage, you get 40 messages a month on the Plus account, which is what I've got, which is probably more than adequate, actually, because you won't want to use this feature too often. Normally, a quick AI search will suffice. So a third disadvantage is it's slow. The OpenAI website says it takes 5 to 30 minutes to run a search, which seems pretty accurate from what I've experienced. It's probably not very climate friendly. I would say that's an understatement. There's been a lot of publicity about how much electricity and water a single search uses in an AI tool. I would say you can multiply that by a factor of about 100. And finally, you might want to think carefully about whether you want to share your connections with a server, which is probably sitting somewhere in San Francisco. So you need to think, firstly, do I trust OpenAI? And secondly, do I trust them not to be hacked? Obviously, you don't have to share your connections. You can just use agent mode to get information, and then you can make the final decisions on what actions to take based upon it yourself on your own computer. So 3 of us need to get from Manchester to Amsterdam in the middle of October. It's so that I can see my wife and daughter running a marathon, actually. So what I want to know is what's the most efficient way to do that. One possible route is shown there using Google Maps by train. But how much will it cost, and are there better ways to travel? So here's the prompt I'll use. 3 of us need to get to Amsterdam by the evening of Friday the 17th of October and return back home to Manchester, leaving ideally on the morning of Tuesday the 21st of October. So I've said we can go by train, plane or car. Please come up with a couple of the best options for each of the 3 types of travel so we can make our decision. And to make my life really easy, I've asked it to present it in an Excel worksheet with columns giving the journey number. So I'm going to have 6 different journey numbers for the 6 different possibilities, the travel method and the cost and the start time and all sorts of other bits of interesting information. For each potential journey, I want to create a backup worksheet giving the details of each leg with the cost for each. So the first worksheet will contain a summary, and the other worksheets will contain the details for each of the possible 6 scenarios. So for each leg, I'll show where it started, where it ended, how long it takes, how much it costs. And then I said you can ignore for each scenario any costs or time for getting to or from the final starting point or destination. So I don't want it to bother with the fact we have to get from our home to the airport or train, and I don't want it to bother at the other end with how we get from the Amsterdam destination to our hotel or houseboat or wherever we decide to stay. And finally, it needs to know how much private car mileage costs, so I've said 30p per mile. This is a fairly typical use, I would say, of agent mode. You have to invest quite a lot of time in getting the prompt right, but now that I've given it the brief, I can just let it go away and do its own thing, and that's what I'm going to do now. So finally, after 13 exhausting minutes, here's what we get as a result. It's given me a summary of everything it's done, and then the spreadsheet I asked for, and I can click on this icon to download that. If I then have a look at the Excel file generated, you can see it's done an incredibly good job at giving me exactly what I asked for. So I've got my initial spreadsheet giving my 6 different journeys. You can see from this that the plane journey by EasyJet is by far the cheapest. And then it's given me one spreadsheet giving the individual legs for each of the 6 options. But is it right? The EasyJet option given me leaves at 5:50 in the morning and gets in at 8:15 and costs £270. I presume that's for 3 people, but I'm not actually clear from this. So what I thought I'd do is look at the actual live EasyJet flight information. There's Friday the 17th of October, and you can see that the flight is recommended doesn't actually seem to exist, and there's a much cheaper one later. I'd probably choose that one. Coming back on the Tuesday, you can see that the lowest fare is 9:55 in the morning, so I'll probably go for that one. Taken together, those give a price of £130.05. Now, I don't know how accurate the Excel information was, and I don't really feel like spending ages trying to justify the differences between it. But I find it extremely hard to believe that ChatGPT Agent Mode has taken account of all the possible extras in EasyJet and all the various extra considerations I would have when booking this flight. So while I think it gave me an excellent summary of the different options, I'm less confident that it would actually give me exactly the right flight. So on this occasion, I think I'll give it about 5 out of 10. But that doesn't preclude the fact that it's a fantastic tool and will save me vast amounts of work in the future. You can get a couple of very useful bits of information about a search which you've run using Agent Mode. One of them is the steps taken. So you have the time summary here, worked for 13 minutes. If you click on that, what it will do is give you all the stages involved. And what I can do is to click and drag this timeline to see the steps being taken at any point in time. You can actually do this while it's compiling the search, but you can also do it when the search is actually finished. Whether that's useful information, I leave it to you to decide. Possibly of more use is the fact that you can go to the bottom of the search and have a look at the sources used. So if I click on that, they'll appear in a sidebar on the right-hand side. And you can scroll up and down to see all the different websites they went to. I'm a bit disappointed in these. It doesn't, for example, include Skyscanner, which would be my first port of call. But maybe ChatGPT knows something that I don't. What I want to do now is run another example showing how you can take control of a session, or how ChatGPT can ask you to take control, and the implications of that. So I'll go into agent mode, and I'm going to run this query. Please order me a copy of War and Peace by Leon Tolstoy, my favourite reading, from Waterstones. The reason I put Waterstones there is because I tried this before, saying from Amazon. Agent mode spent ages trying to connect to Amazon and eventually realised it was being blocked. It then tried again and chose Waterstones, so I'm just short-circuiting the process and allowing it to go straight to this website. So I fast-forwarded a bit there, or skipped a bit, and you can see it's finally found the copy of War and Peace. It's clicked on it to open it, and it's going to order the paperback. I think it said there because it's cheaper, which is a good choice, I think. It's trying to add it to my basket now, and then it's going to try checking out. At any point in this process, I can take over the browser by clicking the three dots and choosing that. And what that would do is pause agent mode in what it's doing and allow me to intervene with the process. But I don't want to do that, so I'm going to let it carry on in its merry way. And I'm hoping in a short while it's going to get to the stage where it hasn't got enough information. So at the moment it's trying to buy it anonymously without an account, but it's finally reached the point where it's got to type in an email address. So it says, to continue checking out, Waterstones requires an email address and delivery details. Please take over briefly to enter your email and shipping information and let me know once that's done. I'll then proceed to the payment step. And at that point, presumably, it will again ask me to take control so I can type in my payment details. So I'm going to click on Take Over, and I'm now controlling the browser. So just to make clear what this is doing, this is a virtual machine sitting somewhere on a computer, presumably in San Francisco, and I'm now typing my personal details into it. As you see, I'm actually typing onto somebody else's browser. And at this point, I'm feeling distinctly uncomfortable. I guess I might share my email address, but there's no way I'm going to type in my payment details, however secure it is. So this is one of the big things you need to consider about using agent mode. To what extent are you prepared to trust OpenAI with your personal details? And that is very much a question for you and not for me. So what I want to do now is show how you can connect to services like Gmail, which is what you're looking at here, or Google Calendar, to get agent mode to do things on your behalf, if you trust it. So this is my Gmail account, except it's not really, is it? I've set up a temporary account in the name of Andy McCowell for the purposes of this video. And what I'm going to do now is connect to it. You can do that in one of two ways in ChatGPT. You can either click on your icon at the bottom left corner of the screen and choose Settings, and then click on Connectors. Choose the thing you want to connect to, which in my case would be Gmail, and then you could click on the Connect button and type in your connection details. The other way you could do the same thing is by creating an agent mode request. So I'm going to do that, and choosing that one of the sources it can use is Gmail in this case. It then comes up with the first of many warnings telling me that it's going to use sensitive data, and I can now connect to Gmail. It's asking me for a 6-digit verification code, but mine is 541236, and I can continue. It's now asking me which account I want to connect to, so I'm going to choose Andy McOwl, and it's telling me rather scarily that ChatGPT already has some access. This disturbs me a great deal because when testing this out, I successfully connected to this Google account, but then I thought I'd disconnected from it. I deleted all the chats to do with it, and I'd even logged out of ChatGPT and logged back in again, and yet it still thinks there's a connection. So it seems to be worryingly persistent. I can click on the Continue button, and I've now got a connection to Gmail. So in the next part of this video, we'll try using that to send an email to myself. So for the final part of this video, I'm going to ask Agent Mode to send myself an email. So please use a connected Gmail account to send an email from myself to myself. I have no idea why it capitalizes or rather puts that in blue. It doesn't seem to be clickable in any way, nor does it come up with any extra information when I hover over it. The subject of the email should be hello, and the body text should be having fun in Agent Mode land, wish you were here. And I'm going to click on this button, and it's going to start a long, exhaustive process of sending me an email. You might like to think at this point how long it would take you to do this manually. 30 seconds? But because it's a computer, what you'll see if you watch it, and I'm not intending to take you through the whole thing, is it takes forever having to go around the houses to do things a human would find so simple. Just to give one example, when it comes to create the email, I've been watching this previously, it takes ages to fill in the email address. It says things like trying to click on position 632,584. Oh, I've just missed the cross. I'll try again. So it's been going about 2 minutes and it's now asked me to take over. It says, it looks like the Gmail connector available in your workspace only supports reading and searching emails. It doesn't provide any send functionality. So what I'm going to have to do is to take over and sign into my email account again. Now, I'm not saying that there aren't ways around this. I just want to finish this video. So I'm now controlling the browser. I'm going to click on my account. I'm going to type in my password carefully and then choose to connect. It's looking good. It's now connected. I'm going to say I'm finished controlling, and I'm going to hand control back over to ChatGPT. Well, you've missed all sorts of fun behind the scenes. What it did is paused execution while I could click to send the email or confirm that I wanted to send it. What it hadn't done is it hadn't filled in the email address. So while the subject and the body were correct, it didn't actually send it. So it then said, I've made a mistake. I haven't got a to address. And it's now spent a couple of minutes trying to fill in the to address. You can see, by the way, all sorts of warnings. It says sensitive data, something not right, and I can click on that to stop the agent in its tracks. All very useful, but I suspect if you were really using this as a useful tool, what you would probably do is to run it in the background. So it's unlikely you'll be watching it to monitor everything it was doing. And at this point, I am losing faith in it because what it's done is to add in the to address, my own email address, but also the word hello, and it's now trying to send that even though that's not a properly formed email address. I have to say that when I was testing this the first time, it all worked perfectly, and I got an email popping up in my inbox there. So I thought I was about to end this on a high note, because I thought that after 5 minutes, it had finally sent my email. It certainly thinks it has. It says your email has been sent successfully. So I went to my inbox and I thought, yeah, I've got an email. But this is actually from Gmail telling me it couldn't deliver my email. So the email that ChatGPT created on my behalf is this one. And it's tried to deliver it to andymcowl1@gmail.com rather than Andy McOwl. And this is really bizarre because the first time I ran this, I watched it arguing with itself and saying, is that a 1 or is it an L? What I'd better do is find the email address and copy it and paste it in to make sure I don't make a mistake. But on this second occasion, while you were watching, it hasn't gone through that process, and so it's delivered the email to an incorrect address. And you might like to think of the consequences of this. I've just sent possibly a sensitive email to somebody else and not myself. I really think Agent Mode is fantastic. I think it's going to save me huge amounts of time. It's unfortunate that it's not completely reliable, and I personally won't be sharing my confidential details with it anytime soon. But I will be using it for things where I don't have to create connections to Gmail. But having seen what I've been showing you, I hope you can make the right decision for yourself and that you've enjoyed watching this tutorial. There's so much more on our website at wiseowl.co.uk, including blogs, shorter tips, tutorials on SQL and VBA, hundreds of exercises in all sorts of different software applications, and a chance to test your skills in a few selected software applications. In addition to all of that, you can watch our video tutorials like this one in all these different subjects. Or you could consider booking one of our training courses, whether it be classroom, on-site, or online, or even as one-to-one consultancy. Thank you for watching.